Welcome to today's episode of Buildings Hub Live, where we spotlight the changemakers and technologies leading the charge to electrify our built environment. On our podcast, we tackle the issues facing building decarbonization, from space heating to electric cooking to building codes and beyond. On this episode, we'll chat with Ryan Cassidy, Vice President of Real Estate at Mutual Housing California, and Keith Snyder, Energy Branch Manager at the Fairfax County Park Authority. What kinds of innovative new projects and process improvements are building owners undertaking? Stay tuned to find out. Here's your host, Atlas Public Policy Analyst Stephen Naimoli.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 21st episode of Buildings Hub Live. My name is Stephen Naimoli, Policy Analyst at Atlas Public Policy, and I have the honor of being your host today. For today's episode, we'll discuss some exciting projects that have caught our eye from this year's Department of Energy Better Buildings Initiative awardees. How do you upgrade heating and cooling at a public facility while staying within the constraints of public budgets? And how do you make new affordable housing energy efficient while keeping it affordable to build? Stay with us to find out. Before we jump into our discussion today, a quick note on Buildings Hub. Here at Atlas, we manage a one-stop shop data analysis tool for building sector electrification called Buildings Hub. If you're interested in heat pump market data, state buildings policies and funding programs, the current makeup of the U.S. housing stock, and crisply designed dashboards, we've got you covered. We recently launched a dashboard tracking the status of home energy rebates programs in states across the country. We encourage you to register for our platform and check out our data features. We'd love to have you join the Buildings Hub community. As for this episode, we're currently live on YouTube and LinkedIn. We encourage our audience to send us your questions via the Q&A portal on our YouTube live stream, and we'll work them into the discussion. We look forward to hearing from you throughout the episode. It's now my pleasure to introduce our special guests today. We're joined by Ryan Cassidy, Vice President of Real Estate at Mutual Housing California, and Keith Snyder, Energy Branch Manager at the Fairfax County Park Authority. Ryan and Keith, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, we've got lots to cover and only half an hour, so let's get right to it. First, I just want to start off with, some kind of introductions. Please tell us a little bit about where you work and the project you undertook. Ryan, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate at Mutual Housing California. Mutual Housing is a 35 plus year affordable housing developer and community group. And so we do our own real estate development, our own property management, and our own community development here in Northern California.
Great, thanks. Keith.
I'm Keith Snyder. I'm the Energy Branch Manager for the Fairfax County Park Authority, which is the largest landowner in Fairfax County, just outside of Washington, D.C. We've got 422 total parks, which includes 9 rec centers with natatoriums, gymnasiums, club rooms, workout spaces, a very diverse amount of offerings in those facilities. 7 golf courses, a bunch of nature centers, athletic fields, and a lot more. So our county is very diverse in what it offers through our parks.
Great. So Keith, can you tell us a little bit about the project that you were kind of recognized for with Better Buildings?
One of our rec centers, Spring Hill Rec Center, was built in the 80s. It's just outside McLean in the Tysons area of the county. It had several expansions throughout its life, getting a gymnasium and a fitness center renovation. But the building equipment was mainly at the end of its life, which included an extensive amount of equipment throughout the building. The cooling tower, chiller, pool dehumidification units, boilers, and other air handlers all were at or near end of life. So we were able to take and look at all this equipment and really synthesize our project to address all the needs at one time and achieve a drastic reduction in our energy usage and carbon footprint, as well as reducing our maintenance costs long term by replacing all at once.
That's great. just to dig into that a little bit more, one piece that I think our audience is probably will be particularly interested in your retrofit here was you went with a geothermal HVAC system. Why geothermal?
So we compared replacement in kind with several other options, and being able to replace the cooling tower and chiller at the same exact time opened the opportunity for us to be able to even think about geothermal. At the time, the 30% tax credit had also been introduced, and we were able to utilize that for the first time, being a public entity. So it allowed us to open our eyes to get geothermal on the table. It opened an opportunity for a rebate, and it opened us up for carbon reduction and better electrification of the facility. Energy savings wise, we were able to get a little bit more savings out of the building, about $10,000 extra. But when you factor in the tax rebate, geothermal costs about $1 million more. But that 30% rebate allowed us to actually get back 1.3. So it practically paid for itself to do the effort. And we were fortunate to have our contractor, CMTA, who is a state ESCO. This was their second phase of projects with us. So we had some comfort doing major building assessments and retrofits with them. So we were able to work with all of our organization to figure out what fit best and really come up with that team option that geothermal was going to be prepare us better for the future.
That's great. Particularly, I think another thing that will be of interest to our audience is, as you mentioned the value of the tax credit that you were able to get. I think that's something that our audience is paying, and we have been paying a lot of attention to, at the federal level, at the state level, at local levels, things like that, and it's something that's going to continue to be a big deal and a big news item, let's say, moving forward.
It's definitely something we're looking at in the county. Obviously, everybody's potentially changing their finances at the moment, and having a rebate on big initiatives is key to get them implemented. We've used that for solar as well, in advancing some of our county initiatives and for energy savings and carbon reduction.
Great. I want to come back to you and talk, especially about the ESCO that you talked about. But for now, I want to go over to Ryan. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of process improvements that you were recognized for as part of this Better Buildings Initiative award?
Yeah, so we were recognized for our factory-built housing project that's done at scale. So instead of doing like a one-off factory-built project, we wanted to really scale it and drive value with that approach. And on top of that, we wanted to set some ambitious goals around energy usage. So getting to a Z&E condition or zero net energy condition on all of those projects. So we've got 5 projects in the pipeline. It's nearly 600 units. And our belief is that if we go ahead and scale that, we can achieve a lot of cost compression and time compression by using a factory-built housing model.
That is great. 600 units is quite a few, so that's fantastic. What inspired this project?
Yeah, so if you know anything about affordable housing, you know that probably it costs too much and it takes too long, and I think that's been kind of feeding into the housing crisis for probably decades. The main affordable housing tool is LIHTC, or low-income housing tax credits. The regulation around LIHTC, the value of LIHTC has kind of slowly eroded over time. And then, of course, costs have gone up. So affordable housing developers find ourselves in kind of a tough position of, the housing crisis hasn't gotten any better, and yet we're in a harder environment to both build and develop. So that's the world we're working in. One of the things that we found that we could do to both lower costs and compress time was to work with factories and scale kind of that solution. Now, there's been lots of groups that have gone out and done a single factory built project where they get all the pain and probably not much of the gain. Our goal here was to scale it. And so that meant kind of reordering our development process and also kind of like reimagining our development relationships. So that starts with a factory. So instead of taking every project to a single architect or a single general contractor to like develop boutique solutions, we're looking at going to a factory and developing modules that can work in an array of housing solutions. So our first step was getting to a factory and getting into an agreement that, we're going to do this kind of scale, because factories also don't want to see one building for 50 units and then have to go out and sell their product across like hundreds of developers. They really want aggregation as well. So we're able to do that. And we're also able to, or part of our goal is to also work with a single contractor and a single architect. So really cutting out a lot of the churn that we take in development. Affordable housing development takes anywhere between 3 and 5 years from pre-development to completion. And so we're really trying to compress that timeline and compress costs by getting the same team working together and getting solutions in place that we can repeat and then delivering that at net zero.
That's awesome. The scale there seems like I would imagine there's like a pretty large value there of kind of unifying across these different projects, so that I would imagine the costs of going to different contractors, different architects, even different manufacturers for each individual project would add a lot more. So I imagine that cuts out quite a bit in costs there.
Yeah, that's right. We've really been in our whole industry. This isn't unique to mutual housing, but the whole affordable housing industry has kind of treated every project as a unicorn with a separate team, and really spending a lot of time and energy on like boutique design and placemaking. We think we can get the best value from placemaking with our architects being focused on the exterior of our buildings and the siding, and getting them out of the business of like designing every single living space. And so that's what factory building brings. Our goals when we entered this was to get 5% cost compression and 40% time compression on our builds. So 40% that's a big driver, because we're carrying a lot less construction interest, and insurance costs are lower when we work faster. So we've been able to just through our RFP process to get there. So we're really excited that we're already at that 40% time compression and 5% cost. So we're looking now, as we start to execute and move forward on these deals, to try to get to 10% cost reduction and 50% time compression as we kind of keep resetting our goals to be more aggressive.
That's awesome. Congratulations on hitting that already. So I know that this project is ongoing, of course, but so far, what's something that's gone differently than you expected, whether, for better or for worse?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, going into this, we weren't sure what the feedback would be from partners, whether that's financing partners or contractors or architects, because we really are kind of reimagining what we do. And so that's kind of resetting a lot of those relationships. We've been pleasantly surprised about the way that the factories came to the table, the way they understood what we were trying to do, the way contractors who have a lot at stake, they're probably doing 40 to 50% less work per project, but they're also working faster. So we've talked about those trade-offs in contract size to speed with them, and the same with the architects. We're looking for cost compression on the architecture side. All of our architecture partners have really understood that, and they've stepped up. So when you're doing something new, you've got to really communicate well and reimagine those relationships. And I think we weren't sure how that was going to go and how folks might respond to that, but it's been really good. And like I said, we've already achieved our time and cost compression goals kind of at the outset. So we're excited to kind of push those further and continue to learn how to deliver this with the Z&E side as well.
That's great. I want to now turn back to Keith with the same question. With your retrofit project for the Spring Hill Rec Center, what is something that went differently than you expected?
Well, we operate nearly 24/7, or sorry, not 24/7, but 365. We were open every day of the year practically. So we have a lot of patrons through our buildings. We have a lot of interest in what we do at our facilities. Given geothermal wellfield drilling is very public and very, very loud and visible, we were expecting a lot of feedback from our patrons, a lot of feedback from the community. And actually, we were pleasantly surprised of the positivity going towards these projects. We were able to do this starting in August, and we had final completion in July of the next year. And every day there was some kind of contractor operations in the building, paper down on the floors. So we were really surprised by the patrons not having really anything negative to say about the project. We did it with minimal impact to the building, which, for that duration of a project, it was very invasive. A lot of equipment moved out, a lot of equipment being moved in, overnight outages. It ran very smoothly. So I think we were surprised how well it went off, and really kind of was a testament of how well we designed and planned for the project. So that's definitely something. If you're going to do a building retrofit, design it as well as you can. Think about all the things that could go wrong and how to actually put the project together while you're doing your design. You'll smooth out a lot of those issues that could kind of trip you up when it comes to the actual construction phase.
That's very impressive. Glad to hear it. I think probably for me, the most surprising is like you were able to carry it out with minimal kind of intrusion into operations, because that, it's a very operations intensive or a very like labor intensive process doing a comprehensive retrofit like that. So that's fantastic to hear, because you would assume that it would be a big it would require closing the place down and not let for like a long time and being a whole project like that.
We did have to close different spaces down for a couple of days at a time, but we tried to plan it where the impact was as minimal as possible. Pick times of the year that the space was already not used or in between classes to be able to really change out the air handlers. There's a daycare on site that we actually had to do the first 2 weeks of the project, was demoing the ceiling tile and doing ceiling reinforcements for pool units that weren't going to get set for 9 months. But we had to do it that week those 2 weeks, because that was the only time those rooms were empty. So it was really looking at holistically, where does all this stuff go, and really challenging ourselves to be prepared to do the task needed when the opportunity came along.
That's great. So for this project, you used an energy savings performance contract. Can you talk a little bit about like what these performance contracts are like, and why you chose to go that route?
So we started with the ESPCs, the ESCOs, back in 2021 with the county, and we've used them now through 4 different phases of implementation. Each phase gets an audit by the vendor. They come out, they tour your building, they come up with a list of energy conservation measures, ECMs, that you then decide if you're going to pursue. There is a small nominal fee for the audit. If you don't choose to go any further, you can just pay for that and have your list handy. You can move forward and design with any of them, which there is a set design fee too that you negotiate with the contractors. And then if you pursue actual projects and construction, then all those previous steps are rolled into your final cost. So you're well aware of how it's going and what it's going to cost you at each step of the way. There's no commitment until you are presented the projects. You can shelve them for as long as needed and then come back to them. That's actually what we did with phase 2. We had Oakmont and Spring Hill both audited, but we waited till phase 3 to do Oakmont almost a year later. So we were able to dust off the projects that were there. We got extra time to get funding. So we've really been able to work closely with them. And one of the biggest benefits is the guaranteed cost savings. So we have a 20-year performance contract. They have to meet energy savings that are stipulated. They're constantly tracking and monitoring what's going on in our facilities, helping us out, and doing troubleshooting along the way. So they're invested in the project more so than if you do a design build through other companies. You have your 1-year craftsman warranty, and then that's pretty much it. And you're having to operate it on your own. So there's a lot of benefits to going with ESBC, and it's something that we would suggest other jurisdictions doing with large equipment, because you do get that vested interest, you get that kind of guarantee of performance built into what you would be doing anyways.
Yeah, it sounds like also, that flexibility in the early process is really valuable as well, where you get the audit, you get the list, the list of measures, and then you can choose, when it makes sense for you financially to go through with those.
One of the side benefits too is the more phases you do with a group or with an ESCO, the better they learn how you work, how your company works, how your county, and so they can kind of tailor a lot of things better to you versus what they do right out the gate. So they can look for different opportunities. They can package things better. And it becomes a lot more like a partnership versus here's a contractor coming in just to fix something. And they really kind of value the goals that you have as an entity. And so it's definitely an option to look at if you're in the market for major building overhauls.
Great. Ryan, I want to turn it back to you with a somewhat similar, somewhat related question. So, you mentioned your intention is working with one manufacturer, one general contractor across several different cities. What sort of criteria did you use or are you using to identify the right partners for this project?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. We went through an RFP process for all three key development partners: factory, general contractor, and architect. And we kind of ordered them in an interesting way. I mean, normally in development, you start with your design team and then you build to your contracting team. We flipped this on its head. We wanted to recognize that the factory was really the key component here, and we were going to try to get the architect out of that design portion, and then the site-built contractor to follow. So we actually chose our factory first, and now we've got our contractor selection next, and then the architect trailing. So it's sort of like indicative of that reimagining the design process and really getting back to like a build-centered approach. And we want to work with folks that want to work with us, and we think this is a winning idea that can scale affordable housing in a new way, drive savings and cost compression. Now, our hope is that it isn't just for mutual housing, but that other groups can see this, because in a housing crisis, it cannot be just mutuals, 1,000 units in our pipeline that get built faster and better and cheaper. We actually have to do that at scale across California and the country. So we're really hoping that this can act as a beacon for other organizations to follow. And in doing so, we want partners that want to work with us. And like I said earlier, it's been really great to see that some of our existing partners have really stepped up to the challenge of doing things differently. Because that's mainly what you get in real estate development. There's a lot of risk. And so doing something you know how to do becomes the de facto solution. And I think what we're noticing is that, every unit that we develop is a family that can live in safe, affordable housing, but we're not doing it fast enough as an industry. And so we need to do things differently. And so that's really what the big problem we're seeking to solve, and looking and being open-minded to partners that are willing to work on us to get there.
That's great. Yeah, I think that point of, who is ultimately the affordable housing really for? It's for, making sure that people can live safely and comfortably in places that they can afford. We at Atlas were at a convening recently that was really very focused on low-income communities, on affordable housing, on equity, on kind of so it was kind of a number of those issues, and there was a lot of there were a lot of questions of like, affordable housing is tough to build and tough to get built. How do we make it go faster and easier? And I'm certainly hopeful that others can learn from you and on this and on making that happen, on being able to scale it across the country. What is one lesson that you've learned from this process that you'd share with others?
I mean, I would say it really revolves around goal setting and being ambitious with our housing program. I think, one thing we think about is that, our efforts to date have been, like I said, really instrumental in providing lots of residents, over 1,500 units of affordable housing here in the Sacramento region that we're really proud of. But we have to do more. So being ambitious and taking an industry that's been sort of stuck in this tax credit model for the last 30 years and trying to do it differently. So I think with our team, we've got full buy-in across our org and in our housing development team that we're going to have to learn to do things differently. And that's going to take effort on our part, but that can also be really exciting. So we're excited to break the mold of what affordable housing, how it's currently done and built. And I think when you get into that mind frame of new goal setting, that's an exciting place to be. So the net zero component especially, we found is a great opportunity to reimagine our partnership, both with material suppliers and contractors and the technology we use in our building. And not just simply saying, well, it costs more, so we can't do it, but digging into the challenge of setting that goal. We're going to be net zero, and then how do we get there? And that just allows people to be creative and get new outcomes. And so we're really excited about the opportunity to do that.
Great. Keith, same question. What's one lesson that you've learned that you would share with others? You're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. 1 second, I'm sorry. One lesson from us, it helps to do a lot of these projects kind of more together, or as together as you can. We've been installing BASs at most of our sites, and it's a lot easier for projects to be implemented together and be controllable, be scalable, and have your long-term savings and efficiency built into your project when you do multiple systems all at once. Having multiple contractors come in at different times, different years, and try to tie systems together, we have found has created more issues than benefits. So that was another reason we pursued this path of tying a lot of things together as much as we could. Plus, then you're impacting buildings and facilities a lot less than if you do it one time or at an extended outage versus multiple times across multiple years. So from the government side, it's just easier to try to minimize the impact of the public, get it done, and have a much better facility for folks to use.
Great. Finally, we're just about to the end of our broadcast, but just really quickly for each of you, what's next? What's next for your organization, for these sorts of projects? Why don't we start with you, Keith?
We're finalizing our upgrade, or we just did substantial completion actually yesterday for our upgrades at our Oakmont Rec Center in our phase 3 with our ESCO. Similar type of work that we did with Spring Hill, just not geothermal. So major upgrades there. We have a 4-week outage of fitness facility and 3 weeks of the pool coming up at Franconia later this summer after school goes in, and when our usage of the facility is lower. So we have some major construction there. We're in phase 4 for another rec center for Providence to do their boilers and pool units next spring, which would also be a 5-week construction window with a 2-week pool outage potentially. So we have a lot of major construction going on there. We just opened a renovated rec center, so we're working closely with that facility as it comes online with their designers and architects, making sure that facility is operating efficiently. And we just started a design phase for another major renovation, a complete rebuild of a Audrey Moore Rec Center coming up, hopefully starting within the next 3 years during the next bond cycle. So that is in the design phase, and we're taking the lessons learned from these phases and renovations at our other rec centers to really give the best facility we can with this new build.
Wow, you've got a lot in the pipeline. That's great. Ryan, what about you? How about Mutual Housing California?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would recognize that our solution is one that's based on real estate development and construction, and it should be really impactful. But ultimately, what we want to deliver is more value to our residents and more, and expand our units so that we can benefit more residents. So when we're smarter with our resources on the development and the construction side, we can use those resources to impact programming, to improve our property operations, to help build resident leaders, all the mission-based things that are really most important to Mutual Housing as we expand. And so we're hoping to expand to over 3,000 units in Northern California in the next 3 years. We're really excited about that. But ultimately, what we see this solving is helping to divert those resources back towards our residents, back towards the grassroots programming that we do so well and really is the root of what we do.
Great. I look forward to seeing it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate hearing from both of you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And for our audience, thank you for joining us. You will be able to find a recording of this episode and any of our past episodes anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. And check out atlasbuildingshub.com to read our digests and data stories and to join our community. Stay tuned for a new episode of Buildings Hub Live soon. See you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Buildings Hub Live. You can listen to this episode and all other installments in our podcast on the Atlas YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. If you're interested in additional content, check out our data, articles, and dashboards on Buildings Hub at atlasbuildingshub.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you again soon.